Have you ever wondered why good people often end up being forgotten, used, or simply ignored? Why, while you strive to do right, do others, less honest, more strategic, rise to the top? The answer is brutal but necessary. The world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards strategic intelligence. If you believe that being good enough will guarantee respect and success, you are living in a fairy tale. Imagine a battlefield. On the one hand, there are those who understand the rules of the game, who know how to manipulate perceptions, control information, and position themselves in an unbeatable way. On the other, there are those who believe that the simple fact of being correct will be enough to keep them safe. Now tell me, who do you think survives? The truth is this: kindness without strategy is weakness. It doesn't matter how fair, generous, or well-intentioned you are. If you don't know how to protect yourself, you will be devoured. And the worst, you've already felt this on your skin. How many times have you been ignored after giving yourself completely? How many times have you helped someone who, in the end, only used your goodwill? Have you noticed that the people who really dominate the game are not necessarily the fairest, but rather those who know how to balance emotional intelligence with strategic coolness? Here is the fatal mistake that most people make, believing that it is enough to be good to be valued. But in the real world, it is not truth that governs, but perception. Have you ever seen incompetent people get further than those who really deserved it? Have you ever witnessed manipulators being promoted while honest workers were left behind? This happens because people follow those who seem to be in control, not necessarily the most capable. And if you don't learn to play this game, you will continue to be the pawn of those who have already learned. Niccolo Machiavelli did not write The Prince to encourage evil. He just described how the world really works. He understood that a leader must be both feared and respected, and that excessive naivety is an invitation to failure. After all, what's the point of being fair if justice is not accompanied by power? Today, you have two choices. Continue to believe that the world is fair, or open your eyes to the real rules of the game. The question is, are you ready to learn how to play? Have you ever noticed that in politics, business, and even in personal life, the most competent don't always win? Instead, those who know how to manipulate perceptions, control information, and act strategically end up taking charge. This is no coincidence. It's a pattern that has existed for centuries. If we go back in time, we can see how the great leaders of history never relied solely on their good intentions. From Julius Caesar to the tycoons of the 21st century, success has always been in the hands of those who knew how to balance diplomacy and pragmatism. Take the example of Julius Caesar, one of ancient Rome's greatest strategists. He didn't become the most powerful leader of the empire just by being a good general. He understood that true power was not just on the battlefield, but in the way he was perceived by the people and the Senate. He knew exactly when to offer concessions and when to act brutally. And the result? He transformed Rome and marked his name in history. Centuries later, Winston Churchill did something similar. During World War II, he not only led the United Kingdom against the Nazis, he also dominated the game of public perception. While Hitler controlled his narrative with propaganda, Churchill used powerful speeches and a firm stance to project confidence and resilience. He knew that a leader cannot show weakness even when he is fighting against all odds. Now, bring this to the present day. Look at the entrepreneurs who dominate the world, like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. They built empires not just with innovation, but with a clear strategy of controlling the narrative and positioning power. Musk, for example, uses Twitter, X, to manipulate entire markets with a simple post. He knows that true control is not just having ideas, but shaping public perception about them. Why perception is the most powerful weapon. Harvard University studies show that 57% of promotions in large companies are not given to the most qualified employees, but to those who know how to sell themselves and create the impression of leadership. This means that, in the career advancement game, the way you project your image may be more important than your actual competence. And this doesn't just happen in the corporate world. Politics is full of examples of figures who came to power not because they were the best options, but because they knew how to manipulate speeches and convince the masses. Want an example? In 1994, Silvio Berlusconi, a billionaire businessman, used the media aggressively to transform his image and elect himself Prime Minister of Italy. He had no significant political experience, but he dominated the narrative, appearing as the savior the country needed. The reality? He has been embroiled in numerous scandals, but his ability to manipulate public perception has maintained his influence for decades. The biggest mistake anyone can make in life, whether at work, in politics, or in relationships, is thinking that being good and fair is enough to be successful. The real world doesn't work like that. If you don't know how to position yourself, you will be ignored. If you don't understand how to control your own image, others will decide for you. If you don't learn to play the power game, you will be just another pawn on the board. This doesn't mean you need to become manipulative or dishonest. It means you need to stop being naive. Being good is not the problem. The problem is being good without strategy. If you continue to expect the world to reward you just for being a good person, you are putting yourself in a vulnerable position. But if you start to understand how power works and learn to use it to your advantage, you can stop being controlled and start controlling your own destiny. The remaining question is, will you continue watching the game, or will you learn to play it? To be quite honest, believing that what matters is being competent, being right, or having good intentions is ignoring one of life's most implacable laws. It is not reality that shapes the world, but people's perception of that reality. In any environment, business, politics, or even personal relationships, what others see about you determines your value much more than what you really are. And if you don't control that perception, someone else will for you. Let's look at a classic example. Imagine two candidates competing for the same job vacancy. The first has years of experience, knows all the details of the position, and always delivers impeccable results. However, he is discreet, avoids self-promotion, and believes that good work speaks for itself. The second has less experience, but knows how to express himself well, sells his image as someone innovative, and conveys confidence, even when he doesn't have all the answers. Now guess who will be hired? If you thought of the second candidate, you were right. Research from Harvard Business Review shows that confident and strategically visible people are up to 60% more likely to be promoted, regardless of their actual competence. This does not mean that talent and hard work are irrelevant, but rather that the world doesn't just reward those who do good work, it rewards those who know how to make others see value in their work. Many people grow up with the belief that if they are good, honest, and hardworking, they will naturally be recognized. But the real world doesn't work on pure merit. It works based on influence, visibility, and perception. Just look at politics. How many times have we seen technically superior candidates lose elections to others with more captivating speeches? A recent example was the rise of Donald Trump in 2016. He was not the most technically prepared candidate, but he knew how to manipulate media attention, use communication to his advantage, and create a perception of power and trust. The same happens in the business world. In 2019, WeWork CEO Adam Neumann managed to raise billions of dollars in investment by selling the idea that his company would be revolutionary. But in practice, the business model was flawed and the company collapsed. Even so, he emerged as a billionaire, proving that knowing how to control the narrative can be more profitable than having a solid plan. Have you ever noticed how many people with no apparent talent go far? They are not necessarily better. They just know how to build and project an image of authority. Project confidence. How you speak and position yourself is just as important as what you say. If you look insecure, people will treat you as insecure. Master your communication. It's not enough to have good ideas. You need to know how to sell them persuasively. Manage your image. In the digital world, the perception you create online can be decisive for your career and relationships. Reality may be on your side, but if people don't see that, what's the point? The truth is that the world doesn't treat you for who you are. A mediocre boss can stay in the role for years just because he asserts himself and conveys security, while more talented employees remain in the shadows. A speaker who has mastered the art of communication can be seen as an expert, even without in-depth knowledge. An influencer who projects a successful life can attract millions of followers, even if their reality is completely different from what they display. This is because human beings don't make decisions based on facts alone. They make decisions based on emotions, appearances, and well-constructed narratives. How can you use this to your advantage? The fatal mistake is to ignore this reality. If you want to be taken seriously, promoted, or respected, You need to learn to control how others see you. It treats you for who it believes you to be. And the question is, are you ready to shape that perception? Or will you continue to let others decide how to see you? Power is rarely in the hands of those who work the hardest or have the best intentions. Instead, it belongs to those who understand how to influence, direct, and, when necessary, manipulate the perceptions and emotions of others. And if that sounds uncomfortable, it's because we've been taught to believe that manipulation is always a negative thing. But the truth is that every day we are influenced, guided, and conditioned, often without even realizing it. Have you ever noticed that, in any competitive environment, the people who really dominate the situation are not those who talk the most or expose themselves too much, but rather those who know what to say, when to say it, and who to say it to? This happens because information is the most powerful weapon there is. Knowing something that others don't know means always being one step ahead. Governments and companies spend billions on public relations to shape narratives and protect their image. Political leaders use carefully chosen words to manipulate public opinion and consolidate power. In the corporate world, those who dominate the flow of information within an organization are those who quickly rise through the ranks. Many people's fatal mistake is talking too much, revealing their plans too soon, or trusting the wrong people. This makes them easy prey for those who understand how the game really works. Manipulation does not necessarily mean deceiving. It means direct perceptions and decisions in a favorable path. Want an example? In 2003, the United States government used a weapons of mass destruction argument to justify the invasion of Iraq. Later, it was proven that these weapons never existed, but the narrative had already been constructed and influenced the decision of a war. Another classic case. In 2018, the Cambridge Analytica scandal revealed how companies were collecting and manipulating data from millions of people to influence elections and consumer behavior. This case proved that, in the 21st century, those who control information have more power than those who make laws. And what does all this mean for you? Simple. If you don't know how to protect your information and manage the way you communicate, you will always be controlled by those who know. The most powerful people in the world understand one cardinal rule: never reveal everything you know. What you share can and will be used against you. Oftentimes, what you say to a friend or colleague can be distorted and passed on to others in harmful ways. Mystery generates respect and curiosity. Leaders who speak little and strategically are seen as more influential and authoritative. Being unpredictable gives you an advantage. If people know exactly how you think and react, they can manipulate you easily. That's why history's most successful strategists, from Napoleon to Steve Jobs, never showed all their cards. They knew that in any power struggle, he who controls the narrative has the absolute advantage. Do you want to be a player or a piece on the board? Manipulation happens everywhere. You can continue to ignore this and allow others to dictate the rules for you, or you can begin to understand how power really works. Then, would you rather be the one who makes the decisions, or the one who is manipulated without realizing it? Many people believe that to be successful, you have to choose between being an ethical person or someone strategic and ruthless. But this is a false dichotomy. True power is not in abandoning your principles, but in knowing when and how to apply them. Excessive naivety can make someone an easy target, while a lack of ethics can destroy a reputation. The secret is finding balance, being a fair person, but never naive, being strategic without losing your integrity. If you believe that you just need to do good to be rewarded, you may have noticed that the world doesn't work that way. There are countless stories of talented and honest people who were exploited, while others, less competent, knew how to use the game to their advantage. But that doesn't mean you need to cheat or manipulate to win. It means you need to be aware of reality and adapt your actions without compromising your essential values. Want an example? In 1865, Abraham Lincoln faced one of the greatest crises in American history, the Civil War. He wanted to abolish slavery, but he knew that good intentions alone were not enough to convince the political elite of the time. So he took a pragmatic approach. He made deals, used persuasion tactics, and even employed methods that today would be considered Machiavellian. The result? He managed to end slavery without losing control of the country. Lincoln didn't betray his principles. He strengthened them when using strategy as a means to a greater goal. Imagine two people in a business environment. The idealist believes that he should always follow the rules to the letter, trust the intentions of others, and never compromise. As a result, he is often left behind, doesn't know how to negotiate, and sees less talented people advance while he stagnates. The cynic, on the other hand, plays just to win, manipulates, lies, and uses others as stepping stones to his success. In the short term, you may even achieve some victories, but eventually you lose people's trust and end up isolated. Neither profile is sustainable. The idealist will be swallowed up, and the cynic will fall alone. True power lies in knowing how to balance strategic intelligence with solid principles. How to be strategic without losing your essence. The answer lies in flexibility. Great leaders and strategists know when to follow the rules and when to adapt them. They understand that being fair does not mean being passive, and being firm does not mean being cruel. Here are some keys to maintaining that balance. Be loyal, but know who to trust. Not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. Choose your wedding rings wisely. Have non-negotiable values, but don't be rigid in everything. Some battles need flexibility to be won. Control your emotions, but maintain your humanity. Being cold all the time can make you too calculating and alienate valuable allies. The world does not reward those who only do good, but it also does not support those who only play dirty. The real winners are those who know when to be firm and when to be flexible, when to speak and when to act silently, when to trust and when to distrust. The question that remains is, do you know how to balance strategy with character, or are you still falling into extremes that weaken you? If you don't control your emotions, someone else will do it for you. If you allow yourself to be carried away by anger, fear, or anxiety, you are giving your power into the hands of those who know how to exploit these weaknesses. Those who dominate the power game are not necessarily the physically strongest or the most intellectually intelligent. They are the ones who know how to stay calm when everyone around them is losing control. Have you ever noticed that some people always seem to be in charge, regardless of the situation? This doesn't happen by chance. These people have developed a psychological shield that prevents them from reacting impulsively. On the other hand, those who do not control their emotions often make fatal mistakes. They explode with anger and lose credibility. Nothing destroys an image of authority more than a lack of emotional control. They make decisions based on fear. People who act on impulse often make choices that harm them in the long run. They let themselves be carried away by anxiety. The rush to seek approval or the need to please makes someone predictable and easy to manipulate. History is full of examples of leaders who lost everything because they didn't know how to control their emotions. A classic case was Napoleon Bonaparte. He was a military genius, but his arrogance and impatience led him to fatal mistakes, such as the disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812. His impulsiveness and thirst for power destroyed him more than any enemy army. On the other hand, those who know how to maintain their composure in times of crisis always come out ahead. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in the world, says that people's biggest mistake is letting their emotions guide their financial decisions. He became rich precisely because he knew how to wait and act at the right time while others panicked. Science confirms this idea. Neuroscience research shows that people with greater emotional control are up to 40% more likely to make successful strategic decisions because their brains can process information more clearly under pressure. This means that while the majority act in the heat of the moment, the real power players know how to wait, analyze, and act precisely. How to develop self-confidence and emotional control. Learn to pause before reacting. If something irritates you, take a deep breath and wait a few seconds before responding. This small amount of time can avoid bad decisions. Project confidence, even when you don't feel it. People believe in what you convey. If you show insecurity, you will be treated as someone who is insecure. Avoid being emotionally predictable. If someone knows they can get you off easily, you lose your advantage. Be a difficult person to read. Stay focused on the long term. Impulsive people seek immediate victories. True strategists know that patience and control are powerful weapons. If you allow others to dictate your emotions, you will never have control over your own life. Think about it. Who seems more powerful? The one who gets excited and loses control, or the one who holds his ground and makes others wonder what he's thinking? The answer is obvious. Now, the final question remains. Will you continue to be guided by impulses, or will you learn to dominate your own mind? Now that you understand how power works, the decision is in your hands. Will you use this knowledge to strengthen yourself, or will you continue to be controlled without realizing it? The world does not just reward effort, nor does it reward those who only do good. It favors those who know how to position themselves, understand power dynamics, and balance emotional intelligence with strategy. Think about all the times your voice wasn't heard because you didn't know how to stand up. Reflect on the times when your efforts were ignored, while others, less competent, took the credit. How many times have you realized too late that you were manipulated? The problem is not that you don't deserve respect. The problem is that respect is not given, it is earned. The world doesn't pay attention to those who remain invisible. Success does not come to those who expect recognition, but to those who take a stand. Leadership does not come from the fairest, but from those who know how to balance strategy with character. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt like you were tricked, manipulated, or ignored, share your experience in the comments. Let's talk. If this content made you see the world differently, subscribe for more insights that will change the way you act. And remember, the power game never stops. The question is whether you will learn to play or continue to be a piece on the board.